Hello and welcome back. I'm Sandy with Sandy's Organized Chaos, and it is vlog day today. So happy to see every single one of you. So today we're going to be doing up another flower coaster with each other. Now I've already made up this flower coaster and it turned out okay. It's all right. But I figured this was a great place to kind of show this to you guys and just show you guys that it's fun. You know, you never know what you're going to get. I mean, it doesn't look like the one I did on my tutorial, but I mean, you know, we're still experimenting. So this is definitely something that I've been really enjoying, as you guys have noticed, but we're gonna be making up this one in particular today. I also had a really great question just this week about sanding. So I'm gonna kind of go over that a little bit with you guys here. I'm gonna bring you down so that way you can see my table, and we're gonna talk about sanding before we get started on our coaster. So let's do that really quick. So I have this cup here and I have about 3 coats of epoxy over top of it because you wanna try to make sure that you do your coats or do your sanding when it's not too thin around especially the top of your stuff here. So I pretty much just use a 60 grit. I mean, that's pretty much all I use, but it's all about the pressure that I apply to the tumbler to make sure that I don't mess up anything underneath or anything like that. So I was trying to figure out a way for you guys to visually see what I mean by how much pressure I apply to it. And this is the only thing I could come up with. All right, so I have a piece of paper here. I hope this visual helps. I'm gonna put a little bit of black paint in here. I did not need that much, but all right. So when I talk about pressure, so I have my paintbrush here. I'm gonna get a little bit of paint on it. When I say that I apply heavy amounts of pressure, pretty much if you take a brush and you press it down and the bristles are standing up like that, and you pull, that's the amount of pressure I'm giving to my tumbler. So however much pressure my bristles are getting, that's how hard I push on my sanding block onto my tumbler, if that makes sense to you guys. So a lot of pressure to make your bristles do that, bend up like that, okay? Now when I say medium pressure, you're just gonna go halfway, however much pressure it takes for you to bend your brush, so it's just, the bristles are just kind of flared out. That's how hard of pressure you wanna do on your sanding block. And then light pressure is like, I'm just kind of going over the surface very lightly, like just kind of dabbling, taking the sanding block and just kind of I'm barely touching the brush to the paper, okay? Heavy pressure when sanding is however much pressure it takes for you to bend your brush like that, so you can feel how much pressure in your hand, how much that takes. Medium pressure is however much it takes for you to just bend it halfway, and then light is just barely touching it. All right, so anyways, I'm gonna take my 60 grit, and I use this for heavy, medium, and light pressure because it works the best for me. So when I do the rim, I'm gonna do heavy pressure and at an angle. So at an angle, heavy pressure, and just keep that sanding block straight. See, you're starting to see the rim a little bit there versus over here where you can't see it all. So just at an angle, heavy pressure, going around your tumbler until you get that little bit of silver showing and everything's nice and smooth for you around the rim here. So, and then again, so like around the handle, when I do handle tumblers, I do about medium. So I'll do medium pressure on my handles and light pressure because you don't want to sand so far down that you get to the metal. And then any big lumps, I'll do heavy at first, and then I'll come back through and just kind of scuff it out like that. But yeah, that's what I mean when I'm doing that. So I hope that visual helped you. I know you asked about the grit of sandpaper that you're using and pressure and all that stuff. So hopefully that helps you out. So just however much, you know, you don't want to put too much, you know, you don't want to be too far down. You want to make sure it's at just kind of an angle, just, you know, not like that, you know. Anyways. But I really try my absolute best to come through and answer people's questions. If I feel like I honestly just can't answer it in the comment, I'm gonna try to include your questions in my vlogs, which I've done in the past before. You guys, those of you who watch me, you know. So, but if I just feel, I don't know how else I would have explained that. You know what I mean? So there we go. Let's go ahead and get started on making up our coaster here. All right, so I don't really know if I needed the paint for the demonstration, but you know, it is what it is. So this coaster here, I'm gonna be using the same mold that I used for my other coaster that I press dried flower one. There we go. I put it up there in the little video thing. I'm gonna go ahead and clean out my coaster really good, just with some painter's tape, just get any little hairs and debris out of there. Now I use 2 pumps each of my A and B, so it is at 4 ounces of epoxy altogether, and I don't think I used all of it, so I didn't really need that much. These coasters do take a lot of epoxy, but I'm gonna go ahead and divvy up some of this epoxy into 2 different cups, because that's gonna be like our flower colors per se, and then I'm gonna leave the majority of it in the main cup that I'm pouring here for the base of everything. So I wanted it to kind of have a sparkle look to it. I'm gonna add a little bit of dusty pink into it. I accidentally added too much. As you guys know, a little bit of this stuff goes a long ways, and I added a little too much, but again, it is what it is. But that's what I love about my vlogs. I can kind of just be myself and show you guys even my mistakes, okay? Just so you know, I make mistakes all the time. Oh, and also while we're talking about my sparkle dust, I have a lot of people asking me when my restocks are going to be for that. This stuff is actually on back order right now, and I'm hoping to have it in the next month or so. All right, so hopefully it'll be back soon. It's been very popular lately. It's sold out pretty quick in the last couple weeks, so I don't know if somebody had used it in a video of theirs or what has happened, but thank you very much for all your purchases. All right, after I got that all stirred into my epoxy, now into one of them, I'm gonna apply some of my epoxy dye. There we go, I know what I'm saying. And remember, only a drop of this stuff as well. So, I added a lot, but that's okay, that's okay. Now into my other little container, I'm gonna add some of this Flow Pink. It's the same kind of epoxy dye. Now, I know you guys are probably wondering, could I just use acrylic paints and all that? Of course, absolutely. You can use acrylic paint. You can use alcohol inks. It doesn't matter. The reason why I like epoxy dye is because it doesn't really mess with it's specially formulated to not mess with the cure of your epoxy. So if you accidentally put too much, it's not gonna do anything to it. Oh, and also I ran out of sticks. So yes, I am using a butter knife that obviously will go into the garbage can after I'm done here. So I ran out of my stir sticks. So you get, you know, sometimes you just gotta make do with what you got. So anyways, yeah, it's specially formulated to not mess with the cure, because sometimes, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, have you put, you put acrylic paint into your epoxy and it becomes real stringy, and sometimes your epoxy won't cure properly. It'll still be really soft even after hours of curing. That's probably because there was a little bit too much paint added by accident, but you know, so that's why that happened. Now that everything's all nice and stirred up, I'm just gonna take that main epoxy cup that I had with the sparkle dust in it, and I'm gonna go ahead and fill up my coaster. Now this isn't going, I don't want it to completely fill up my coaster. We're gonna be doing this in like 3 parts. So if you guys remember my pressed flower coaster I did, it's pretty much like that. We're gonna be doing 3 separate layers for this. So just about halfway up for this layer. Then I will take my heat gun and I'm gonna heat it up really good, making sure that I get all those little micro bubbles out of there. Then I'm gonna add some pearlescent mixative, let's see, yeah, by Tim Holtz, the Pearl Mixative. It's so pretty. So I'm gonna go ahead and shake that up really good. I'm gonna be adding some of that. Now I had to speed this up a little bit because I was a little scared of it, okay? I don't know what my deal was. But each one of these drops is gonna pretty much be where a flower is at. So I did about 3 of those drops. Then I came back through, and in the same pack, they had a gold as well. So I took a gold, and half the flower is gonna be like a white, and then half of it's gonna be like a gold. So that was my thought process with this. Then I decided to come back through and add a few more drops here and there. I felt like it just wasn't enough. And then I took it and I hit it up a little bit with my heat gun to kind of help everything kind of settle down into the epoxy. But this was my first one with a lot of different little epoxy flowers in it versus like 1. So I was a little nervous, and I didn't know how it was going to turn out. But here I am hitting it up a little bit with my heat gun. And then I come back through and add a couple more drops here and there because I just felt like, again, I just needed more and I wanted to do more flowers, I guess. All right, so now it's time to start pouring in our epoxy flowers. And again, I was moving so slow, so I had to speed this up because I was just moving really slow with it. I don't, I'm not so terrified of them now, but I'm just taking my pink that I mixed up here and I'm going to swirl that right into the white. Now this is that pearl ink, and in hindsight, I wish if I could go back in time, I would have added more fluorescent pink epoxy dye, and I would have added more of that white pearl because it was just beautiful. Now into the gold, I'm going to do the opposite where I take the white epoxy dye and I'm going to drizzle that over pretty much everything. So a little bit into the gold and a little bit over into the white. So it kind of makes like this half and half flower, you know. So each one of these swirls is going to be a flower, and I ended up with what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 flowers. So a couple big ones and a couple small ones, but I'm just continuing to layer on this white epoxy just a little bit more. I wanted just to make sure that each one was going to have enough of that petal look once I went to demold it. So I went ahead and just used up the rest of my epoxy here. Now to kind of give the flowers a little definition, I'm just going to take my little silicone tool and we're just going to pull inward on each side. So pull in, and do a little swirl. That's it. So one on the side, one at the top, bottom, connecting each side and giving it a bit of a swirl. Now again, if I could go back in time, I would do a little bit more of this. I would pull in some more of that leaf look into the center just a little bit more, maybe even pull outwards here and there. It's kind of giving it a little bit more definition, but that's pretty much all I would change here at this point. I'm gonna hit it up one more time with my heat gun and then I'm gonna let that cure overnight before we move on to the next step. So here it is the next day. It is really pretty. I'm really liking the way it looks. I had high hopes for it. I really liked how some of those petals were looking off to one side. But again, you never know what you're gonna get when you demold these. So I have a little bit of epoxy mixed up here. I have about 30 milliliters, and I'm gonna go ahead and pour just straight up clear epoxy right over top of our flowers here. Then I'm going to make sure that I come through and make sure that clear epoxy is touching the side of the mold. You want to make sure it's nice and sealed in so that we have a nice fluid line throughout it after it gets demolded as well. You want to make sure it's nice and covered. And of course, hit it up really good with my heat gun to get any of those little micro bubbles and all that. So into the second layer, I wanted it to look like leaves behind the flowers. So I'm taking my green alcohol ink here and I'm just gonna lay down some of this green alcohol ink right into my wet epoxy. I'm gonna take my little silicone tool and I'm just gonna start in the clear epoxy and make my way out, making it look like a leaf. Now, I absolutely loved this. I thought it was so pretty. And again, if I could go back in time, what I would do differently is put those drops of ink further out towards the edge where you can see it better, because after it gets demolded, which I'll show you guys here in a minute, you couldn't really see the leaves behind it. It still gave it the greenery that I wanted, and I do wish I would have added one more flower kind of in the center to really make it look like a bouquet. Because so I made 3 leaves and then I did a drop of that ink in the middle, and I'm gonna take the drop in the middle and I'm just going to make these longer streaks coming off the back. So I think just pushing that further out so it was more visible, the leaves, and putting one more flower in the center of everything really, I think, would have set this off. So all I did was just come through and add just a bunch more of those streaks coming off the back, kind of look like extra greenery. And as you see, it should have been, like I said, those leaves definitely needed to be more towards the outside to be more visible. But after I get that finished up, I'm gonna go ahead and set that off to the side and let that cure overnight, and then we're ready to add the last coat of epoxy onto it. So I wanted my backing to be light, so I chose a white glitter for mine. This is just a pearl white. So I'm gonna go ahead and add some of that into my epoxy here. I did about 30 milliliters. This is the time that you're gonna wanna make sure that it's nice and filled to the top, because this is our finishing layer for this. So after I get that all mixed up, I'm just gonna layer that in. I'm gonna kind of swirl it as I go and just kind of keep topping it off until it almost makes like this bubble look over, like if you got down on the ground and kind of looked at it straight on, it would almost look like a kind of a dome on the top, because epoxy does kind of shrink a little bit, and this is gonna make sure that there's not too much shrinkage happening after it's all dried. So I'm just gonna get that swirled in there really nice. Now, my thought process was I wanted to keep it light because I did the dark green look behind the flowers, but if you just did the flowers, this probably would have looked really, really nice with a darker mica powder as well, like a pretty blue or whatever your favorite color is, purple. This would have looked really nice with a darker color as well. Now, after I got that all swirled in there, I'm gonna go ahead and hit it up really good with my heat gun. Then I'll take it and set it off to the side and let that cure, and then we'll be ready to demold our coaster. All right, all that hard work comes down to this. Now, I know you guys kind of seen it already, but you get a little bit better of a close up here. So this is how she is looking. At first, I wasn't very happy with it, but it really has grown on me, guys. It really has. I mean, I think I did pretty good. There's a little bit of flashing there. I'll take care of that. But, you know, I think it's all right. It's grown on me since I've made it. But now you can see all those little kind of tips I gave you guys, the leaves being closer to the edge so you could see them better. The fluorescent pink turned kind of like this blush pink rather than a fluorescent pink, but it still looks really neat when you look at it up close. See, it has a lot of dimension to it. You know, it has some character. Definitely one more flower, maybe swirled it just a little bit more here and there, but I think I did pretty good. Definitely gonna have to do this again with you guys. All right, guys. Well, I think that's going to do it for me today. I hope you guys enjoyed my little tutorial. Some things turn out, some things don't. You know, it happens. But it's definitely a learning experience. Let me see if I can get in there, because there are some really cool effects in there. So I think I'm going to keep on playing around with it. Maybe we'll do one big one in there next time. I've seen some really awesome things that people have done with these flowers. So this is definitely just kind of like the start of doing up more of just these really cool coasters. But I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day, an amazing rest of your week, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.